our next guest, New York Congressman Peter King, says one way to prevent terror attacks here in the U.S. is to put mosques under surveillance in an effort to root out radicals. New York City once pursued but then abandoned such a strategy. Just a short time ago, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio was asked about Congressman King's suggestion. Listen.
I have a lot of respect for Peter King, but I think he's in the wrong place on this one. Secretary Johnson's right. The way to do a better job of knowing what's happening at the community level and knowing if there are some individuals who aim to do us harm is to deepen the relationship with the Muslim community, with all communities.
Peter King is a Republican congressman out of New York and chairman of the House Subcommittee on Counterterrorism and Intelligence. Congressman, thanks for joining us tonight in the Kelly File.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you.
Okay, can these two things work together? Can you build relationships, inroads, gain the trust of those within the Muslim community who would be the first line of defense, but also at the same time they be aware that you're surveilling their mosque?
Yes, in fact, listen, I actually get along personally with Mayor de Blasio, but we do disagree on this issue. And obviously, we should try to do both. But I can tell you that there are examples right here in Long Island. And I won't speak to New York City. I'll just, confine this to Long Island. There's a number of mosques on Long Island where they welcome the police in, they have brotherhood meetings, and they have breakfasts, et cetera, these community-type meetings. And then we find out later that they had radicals in those mosques. They had young men who claimed they wanted to do jihad. One actually, young man Venus, went to Afghanistan. He was arrested fighting alongside al-Qaeda. And he had gone to the mosque, told the mosque that he planned radical activity at the same time that these mosque leaders were meeting with the police. So there was this great friendship going on, but they never told the police what was going on in the mosque, never told them about this radical activity. There's been other young men on Long Island arrested who belonged to different mosques, and the people in the mosque said, yes, they were radical, but they never told the police. We had in Boston the older Tsarnaev brother, who actually, on the positive side, he was actually ejected from a mosque because he was so radical, but on the negative side, that was never told to the police. So if they had told the police, it's possible, very likely, that the Boston Marathon bombing would not have occurred. And again, there's another example in New York. There was an imam that the NYPD did trust. This is back in 2009. He was the one they trusted the most. And when the NYPD heard that a liquid explosive bomber was coming to New York to attack the subway system, he was being monitored, but they also knew he had other cohorts in New York City, and they went to this imam, asked for advice. Can you help us find out who these three other guys are? And the first thing he did, this is the imam they trusted, he contacted the suspect's father and tipped him off that the NYPD was looking for their son, who was coming to New York to blow up the subway system. So no, you need both. You have to try to cooperate, but unfortunately, not enough mosques and not enough imams do cooperate.
I want to ask you about another report that we had today. This is overseas in London. As you know, there are a limited number of firearms officers, police officers who actually are carrying firearms and weapons with them. Roughly 6,000 or so is my understanding. And we've got the president of the UK Police Foundation now saying he's actually worried that if a big attack goes down, that there won't actually be officers who have the defense mechanisms, the weapons on hand that they need to stop one of these attacks. What do you think?
Yeah, they would probably know best. I would think the more firepower you have, the better, because when these attacks, if they do break out, you're going to have people heavily armed, able to respond very quickly. And if your manned personnel are spread out throughout London, for instance, it's going to be hard to get that much firepower, those who actually are armed, to get them to the scene. So I would say, again, I don't want to tell the British how to do their job. They're very effective at this. But having said that, listen, I think what's happening in New York City should be the model for the world.
All right, Congressman, we know that folks are working around the clock here in New York City and across the country, the U.S., folks working 24/7 to keep us safe, whether we see it or not.
Right.
We thank them, and we thank you for your time, sir.
Shannon, thank you, and Happy New Year.
You too.